Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I am Senate Majority Leader Keisha Ram Hinsdale. I wanted to first just acknowledge a very tragic event last night in the loss of 60 potential passengers on a plane out of Reagan, as well as 4 crew members. Just want to acknowledge these are incredibly somber times in a number of ways. And a lot of information and devastation is coming at us quickly here in Vermont and around the country. That is largely what we want to talk about at this press conference today, is a federal administration, the Trump administration, really adding to the chaos, confusion, and cruelty that a lot of us are experiencing right now, and making matters worse for Vermonters. We stand united as Democrats from all levels of government to tell Vermonters that we have both hands on the wheel and our eyes on the road. This is a very important time for us to be enumerating and understanding the harms that Vermonters are experiencing and making sure we do our best within our means and with our federal partners to resolve those harms and to keep Vermonters safe. With that, we have some of our very esteemed guests to the building who are not often here to grace us with their presence, but are no strangers to the State House. And I'd like to turn it over to our esteemed and energetic and incredible Congresswoman, Becca Balint.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Keisha. Thank you for everyone standing behind me today. I have to say, it's just so nice to be home in Vermont. Had a great day on Tuesday up in the Burlington area meeting with organizations. Yesterday was up in Richford, going to be taking a trip down to Bradford. It's so important for me when I'm back in the state to get to as many Vermonters as I possibly can and hear from them directly how policy is impacting them. So what did I hear while I've been back? That this executive order freezing all federal funds was absolutely devastating to so many organizations, businesses, and federal agencies that serve Vermonters, okay? One of the things that I say all the time, I am not a representative for only Democrats in Vermont. I am a representative for Democrats, Republicans, progressives, independents, people who never vote, people who feel left behind by government. So my lens is always, how is this impacting Vermonters? How is this impacting you? And I can tell you, everything I heard was this chaos, which did not need to happen, directly causes panic, confusion. Already some people have lost their jobs. And look, you shouldn't be in a situation where you log on to a system to find out about Medicaid funding and see a indication that it has gone down, and that when we try to get information from this administration, we have roadblocks, we have no information incoming. This is not what Vermonters want. Even those who voted for the Trump administration, this is not what they wanted. They wanted lowering costs. They wanted to make sure that we could make living in this country more affordable, making sure we all had a fair shot. It is not about stripping away from them programs that they rely on just to live a life of dignity. And I will also add, what the president has done is illegal. It is clearly against the Impoundment Act. He knows that, his team knows that, and members of Congress on the Republican side know that. Even the chair of Appropriations, who is a Republican, he knows that. They say nothing. I am here to fight for Vermonters. That is my charge. And I am not beholden to any party. I am not beholden to any president. I am here to make sure that the money that has been appropriated for Congress is spent on the people it is supposed to help. And that's why I'm here today, to tell you loud and clear, we're gonna see more chaos. We are going to see more confusion. It is a strategy. Absolutely. Not just to flood the zone so we don't know where to focus, but to push the boundaries of what is legal. They are testing the waters to see where the pushback will come. And I'm here to tell you, I am here standing up for the Constitution, the rule of law, and standing up for Vermonters. And I couldn't be more proud to stand with all of these people behind me who I know are also completely and totally focused on the needs of Vermonters. So I will certainly be here to answer some questions, but at this point, I know there's so many people that would like to weigh in on what the last few days have been like for Vermonters. And so I'll turn it back over to Keisha, who is the MC, but I am so proud to represent Vermont, and I am fierce, and I am focused, and I will not be distracted by the nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Balint. We are so grateful that you are standing with us and in Washington fighting for us. So we very much appreciate you being here. And as I think many members of the press know, you have an additional press conference at 12:45 right back here to talk about the harms to our undocumented community members here in Vermont and how to know your rights, even if you appear to someone to be undocumented. Just on his way over here, I was sharing with Treasurer Mike Pieciak harm done to our VA system, to our veterans care. They, because of the federal hiring freeze, had to rescind offers to nurses, a doctor who had just moved his family here. And in the moment, as I try to sort out where their situation stands, I could think of nothing better to do than to let our treasurer know of these individual harms that are being experienced, because he has had the foresight to put a task force together made up of our service providers, our boots on the ground, our eyes and ears in the community, to better understand the harm that is already being experienced by Vermonters with 10 days into a chaotic federal administration, and to do our best to make sure that we protect those folks and we get them back on a path to success, employment, well-being. And so I'd like to turn it over to Treasurer Mike Pieciak and thank him.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Rob Hinsdale. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be standing today with federal and state leaders to deliver the simple message that we are united and we are working hard to protect Vermonters from the chaos of the Trump administration. You know, here in Vermont, we pay our taxes, we keep our word, and we expect that our federal government will follow through on its commitment to provide the critical services that are owed to us as taxpayers. The Trump administration broke that promise this week and threw the entire country into chaos and confusion. Vermont, like every other state in the country, relies heavily on federal funding. Approximately 37% of our state budget is made up of federal funds. And in most cases, these federal funds are powering programs that the federal government itself has directed states to run. Programs that are designed to keep people fed, keep people housed, keep them safe, and ensure that they have access to critical health care that they need. Again, all of which has been thrown into chaos this week. Whether this week's actions around the funding freeze are an example of incompetence or cruelty, they are hurting Americans. And the funding freeze is just one example. Saturday, the Trump administration has threatened to impose significant tariffs on Canadian goods, which, when coupled with retaliatory tariffs, would significantly damage the Vermont economy. Canada is Vermont's largest trading partner, and we have heard from small businesses who are operating on very tight margins that they fear they cannot absorb those costs and will have to pass them along to their customers. So Americans who are already burdened will be experiencing increased costs from that action. We've heard from home builders who supply their lumber from Quebec, meaning that critically needed housing in Vermont will become more expensive to build. We've heard from the maple industry, who relies heavily on equipment that's manufactured in Canada that will certainly harm that critically important Vermont industry. We've heard from rural healthcare providers who receive critical PPE and other healthcare equipment from China, who are afraid that additional tariffs will yet again be another cost driver on healthcare for Vermonters. Again, here's the bottom line. These actions have already hurt Vermonters, especially low-income Vermonters who are struggling to get by in an affordability crisis. I'll also mention that a number of the actions from the administration are designed to target the most vulnerable people in Vermont and the most vulnerable people in our country. And it is really critical that we step up every day, provide a voice to those who are less powerful, because I know all of us are concerned about what's going on, but if you're a person that's in a position where you feel powerless, what's going on is all the more terrifying. And by all of us collectively standing up and pushing back every day, fighting for Vermonters, we will be able to persevere. And from my perspective, every single day that this administration passes, the president and the administration get less powerful. And we need to be fighting back right now when they're at their most powerful. But we will get through it together. Again, we are united here to fight for Vermont, to work for Vermont, and make sure we protect Vermonters and everything that they're owed. I want to thank the senator and the representative and the congresswoman for being here, and all the representatives from the Vermont legislature. It's critical we work together to get through this for Vermonters. Thank you.
I just want to acknowledge I am joined by Pro Tem Phil Baruth, many members of the Senate, members of the House as well. And when we talk about having both hands on the wheel, that starts with the House and the Senate in Vermont working together and both keeping their eyes focused on what's ahead. I couldn't have a better partner in that work as it relates to our Democratic caucuses and the need to keep people focused and able to cut through the noise than Representative Lori Houghton. And I'm delighted to turn this over to her to talk about how the House is going to be responding as well, and particularly her expertise in healthcare, which is going to be critical in this time.
Hi everyone, Lori Houghton, I'm the House Majority Leader. I think chaos has been the word of the day. It's been a chaotic couple weeks, and that is Trump administration's goal. Chaos is expected to weaken our resolve, and while I know it causes deep stress for people, we want you to know we are working together to ensure we've got Vermonters' backs. And we will work together on creative policy solutions for anything this administration throws our way. Myself and my colleagues want to remind Vermonters that we hold strong on our shared values, including the value that a person's medical decisions are between that person and their provider, not the government. That our youth should have the opportunity to be their authentic selves, and that population health policies help Vermonters. When we lift up one community, we lift up all communities. These executive orders represent an all-out assault on our state's values. The executive order aimed at prohibiting gender-affirming care for transgender minors across the country is an unprecedented overreach in executive power in its attempt to shape medical policy, sparking widespread concerns and alarm among medical professionals. Shutting down federal funding, even for just a day, causes unnecessary chaos amongst the vital nonprofits helping our most vulnerable communities. Remember, as the Congresswoman said, these executive orders have to be lawful, and organizations all over the country and in Vermont are watching and acting. We all know healthcare and health insurance systems in our country and in our state are fragile. We also know the Trump administration's Project 2025 plan calls for slashing many of the programs that help Vermonters. Programs like Medicaid, healthcare for seniors, reproductive and gender-affirming care, research, and so much more. With help from our colleagues in the Senate, Treasurer Piczek's office, and other statewide officials, and our federal delegation, we want all Vermonters, especially our LGBTQ+ youth, to know that we will do everything we can to protect Vermonters' access to the care they need and deserve, and protect our healthcare providers that are providing the necessary care. It's at times like this that I'm proud to live in Vermont. We will rally around our neighbors, and I encourage people to stay connected to each other and stay connected to their community. To our LGBTQ+ community and all communities who are targeted by the Trump administration, no executive order will ever invalidate you as individuals. You are loved and valued. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lori. I'll just wrap up the speaking program by emphasizing that what you're hearing is the Trump administration's social policy is hate. Their economic plan is pain. They are not helping you get ahead by lifting you up. They are pushing someone else down. You're going to hear that underscored in the press conference related to immigration. And we all recognize that Vermonters are extremely scared. We are acting, and there are things that every Vermonter can do to make someone feel safer, to speak out, to speak up, to reach out to us, to help us better understand what policies and protections we can enact that will help you. So we want Vermonters to know we have your back, and we need to have each other's backs in what will be a very difficult and dark time to come. We can be that light. We always have been in Vermont, and we're going to need to call on all of that strength right now. With that, thank you. And I know that the Congresswoman is available to answer questions. She has a number of fights ahead in terms of those who will be nominated by the Trump administration to take the helm in many important areas. And we have a lot of reason to be concerned about who those people are. So we are available to take questions at this time for at least a few minutes.
The Impoundment Act will not be a barrier when the president and Republican-controlled Congress seek to advance the goals of these executive orders by the conventional budget-making process. And so I'm wondering, Senator Rom Hinsdale and Representative Houghton, what specific concrete actions can you commit to today to ensure that the nonprofits and government entities that rely on federal funding will not suffer undue financial harm as a result of whatever we see from DC over the next 4 years?
Did Lori leave?
No.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Well, first of all, something that we have committed to today and yesterday and the day before, and I made sure I talked to my majority leader colleague about this, is to be working with our Republican colleagues, to be working with the governor. You know, this is not a time for partisanship. This is an existential crisis. We have our minor quibbles about the budget, you know, that can happen another day. But right now, we are enumerating those harms and starting to look at where in the budget we will need to reinforce our own self-sufficiency to be addressing those. And that's going to take all of us, regardless of party.
I don't have much to add other than we are obviously going through the budgets very closely. We are looking where the federal funding is and what we may do to shore it up. Obviously, we'll be looking to our partners to help us understand all of that and what's coming from the federal level. We're going to do everything we can to have Vermonters' backs.
Can we expect an FY26 state budget that includes contingency funds to backfill potential losses in federal funding?
That's not anything I can commit to at that point because we've just started the budget process.
I think what you are seeing and experiencing and was articulated to some extent is that the chaos, confusion, and unknown of all of this is designed to set us back, to have us fighting each other on who's going to get funded, what conditions will be placed on who's funded and for what, and to start to make us fight amongst ourselves. And I think today what we need to do is breathe and take stock of that so that tomorrow we can stand united and fight for every Vermonter and make sure no one's left behind. But you know, this is designed to start picking us apart by who stands with transgender youth and who supports their immigrant neighbors. And that is what we cannot let happen in this critical moment.
Senator, on that issue, if we presume this was designed to sow chaos, how do you then also refuse to get distracted by it? Because we are all here, we are all talking about this for 3 days. The whole country has been focused on little else, and yet many people say they refuse to get distracted by this, but we are distracted by this. Can you speak to that a little bit?
We are going to be having to think short and long term. I have colleagues who've already started to look at the price of lumber or our social services and our housing stock, and essentially say, what do we need to do to prevent harm right now? But what do we need to do to protect Vermont from the whims of oligarchs and strongmen in the future? I think that is absolutely what we're talking about, is what if our systems that we rely on at the federal level begin to fail? What can we be doing that, even if that never comes to pass, will still make Vermonters better off and more self-sufficient? So as long as we can continue to tie our economic growth and our public safety and our economic stability to outcomes that make us more independent and stronger, I think that's all to the good, and I've heard that from a lot of our chairs at this time.
I'll also just add, we've been through this before, right? It's a little more chaotic this time, but we did this in 2016, and we've also done it through the pandemic. And so those groups that gathered on their own previously have come back together to make sure we're all talking to each other, to make sure we're sharing information, to make sure we're giving each other support. And that is what we need to do throughout the state and with all Vermonters. We cannot let the chaos control us. We need to come together and find the solutions to help Vermonters.
Can I jump in here? So your point is an excellent one, and something I think about all the time, right? Making sure that we're focused on the right things, the most important things. I actually think this is one of the most critical things that we could be focused on this week, and later I'll talk about some others. But look, we know that the folks who drafted the executive order, because they weren't careful enough to scrub where the PDF came from, this has completely and totally been proposed by the folks who were the masterminds of Project 2025. It is about stripping power from the legislative branch and giving it illegally to the executive branch. That's what this is about. And so that is critically important. And it does touch every congressional district. And I can tell you, it was not just the pushback from so-called blue districts that made a difference yesterday. It was all of those organizations in red states. It was those educational institutions in red states who said, what the hell are you doing? This is going to impact all of us. And so, yes, it is going to be constant, daily. You're going to have one crazy thing released in the morning and another one right before bed so that there's no time to focus. This is an important piece because it is about exerting executive power that the president is not supposed to have. We still have 3 branches of government. And that's what I'm going to be fiercely defending. But I appreciate the question.
Going off of that, I think it's fair to say that President Trump has arguably maybe more power entering office this time around than ever before. I'm thinking Supreme Court.
Why is that? Why is that?
I was just going to say the Supreme Court decision on immunity. So I guess just the presidential immunity. So just how have you been generally thinking about checks and balances, operating in the minority, and your ability to push back, I guess, on this comment?
So they have a narrow majority in the House. We have to use all of the leverage that we have in order to push back. But we cannot let our Republican colleagues who know that this action was illegal, we cannot let them off the hook. We cannot let the Republicans who serve on appropriations relinquish their power to the executive branch. We have the power of the purse. We are the ones that set the budget, with guidance, of course, from the executive branch. I am going to be doing all that I can to make the case to my Republican colleagues that it actually does not serve their constituents, the people who voted for them, when they give up their power to an emboldened president. I don't know how we're doing on time.
That's right. As long as they're here, we're good.
I have a question for Mike, can you speak a little bit more about tariffs? Because I think when you enumerated the many tariffs and where they're coming from and how they're going to hurt Vermonters, some people might hear some of those things, like lumber from Canada. Maybe there's an upside. Maybe there is an upside for Vermont's economy to have tariffs on Canadian goods. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yep. Yes, yeah. You know, The Congressman was mentioning that Hydro-Quebec is an important importer of energy into Vermont, as well as steel for our construction. But generally, when you think about tariffs, I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is when you're a small business, which is what many Vermont businesses are, you're not in a position to absorb the costs that tariffs bring to your business. So you either pass those on or you eat them. And if you're eating them, you're in a position where you may not be sustainable into the future. If you pass them on to your customers, you're fighting against larger businesses that are able to absorb those costs or maybe already are producing product at a lower price point. So you have the risk of losing your customer base as well. So small businesses in particular are going to be hit hard by the tariffs, and they don't have the flexibility or the resources to respond. They also don't have the flexibility to pick a different supplier or a different vendor like a larger corporation may have. If they get their particular product from Canada, that may be their only supplier of that product. They can't get the same product from another country that doesn't have a similar tariff. So small businesses like the businesses we have in Vermont are put more at risk. And again, Canada is our largest trading partner. So a place like Vermont has outsized risk compared to other states that have a more diverse import economy.
Any other questions? Okay, I think with that, we'll end the press conference, and we appreciate your time and attention. Thank you.